Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Y'all, it's been a hot minute since I've been here making a video. I want to apologize for that. It's been a little crazy around these parts on my side of life. I do want to apologize now. If you can hear somebody weed whipping or doing yard work in the background, the way life works for me, this has been a silent day. There hasn't been a bird chirping, no cars. The minute I turn the camera on, the yard people want to come out and do the little weed whipping or edging of the yard. So if you hear them, I apologize, but I'm going to go ahead and get this video out. Today I just wanted to do a little bit of a life update. It is officially June. Actually, I am officially 5 months away from my 30th birthday. So that is crazy, y'all. So I am just giving you guys a life update. Not only are we halfway through 2019, I'm also basically halfway to turning 30. What is this? I don't know if y'all can hear that. They're like doing all the yard work outside right now, outside of my apartment. So if you can hear it, I apologize. I have my microphone on, so hopefully that kind of helps drown out some of the background noise. But yeah, so it is officially June, and yeah, a little life update. I am off work for the summer, so I have until the end of July to just be off. I work in a school, well, I work for a school district. I work in multiple schools, but I do get summers off like teachers do, and so I'm going to spend a lot of this time not only making YouTube videos and hopefully more content for you all, but also just getting to know myself some more. So this is my second summer working this particular job, and the first summer last year was rough. So I don't know where this video is going to go. We're just going to talk. We're going to do life updates and we'll just talk. Like, I'm sure there's somebody out there that has either been a similar situation as me or had similar feelings as me. So I'm just here to talk to y'all and to vent a little bit for my own self-care. So last summer was my first official summer off. I had not had a summer off probably since I was like before I could work. So way before I was 16. Either when I had turned 16, I was working over the summer, then I went to college and was taking summer classes or working over the summer. Then I had graduated and worked a job that, you had to work over the summer with. Then I was in graduate school working over the summer, in class over the summer. So last year was my first summer off in like well over a decade. And it was a rough summer. I had gone through a lot of life stuff, and I had used living with my parents, being in school, working as distractions with dealing with kind of stuff that I had been working through, moving through, and dealing with. And so that summer, prior to that summer, like our spring break, I had moved out, got my own place, and then summer came around and I had nothing to do but sit in my stuff, y'all. And it was terrible. Like, I was depressed, I was anxious, I was lonely, I isolated, all of the things. So at that point I was 27? I think I was 27. And yeah, I just kind of had to come to terms and come to grips with some life stuff as a 27-year-old. I had gotten out of a relationship, and I was just kind of processing that, and I was not happy having to look at myself and just the role that I played with the ending of that relationship, as well as just life in general. So this summer, I'm on the other end of that spectrum. That summer was kind of like the catalyst. The December, so summer of 2018, and then December of 2018 is when I really decided to do the good, deep work on myself. Like, I had spent probably a good hunk of my 2018 depressed, super anxious, unhappy, lost, just all the things, all the feelings, all the things. And so December was when can y'all hear that? There were people literally flying by my windows on lawnmowers and all the things. If y'all can hear that, I'm sorry. If you can't, then I just seem crazy. But anyway, I'm pretty sure you can hear that though. Anyway, I have spent all of 2018 just depressed, unhappy, discontent, lost, just unsure of myself, insecure, anxious, overwhelmed, all the things, right? And so starting December 2018, I made a vow to myself. I made a very conscious decision to do my work, and it sucked, y'all. So for the last 6 months, I have been doing my work, and from I'd say December until probably late February, early March, I was really in the trenches of doing work, like deep work on myself. And that time frame, really only in the month of December, I had written a book, I had processed a lot of my trauma, I had read a lot of self-help books, and then I just kind of came to terms with my mess. And so what I'm here to do is to encourage you, and let's just talk about kind of what, if the first 6 months of 2019, if they've been kind of a mess, or they've been a little chaotic or jumbled or traumatic or whatever for you, I'm really here just to encourage you, so that the next 6 months can be different if that's what you would want for yourself. So we're just gonna have a candid conversation and just talk, like two old friends, if that's what you wanna do. So let's get into it. All right, so for the first 6 months of this year, like I said, I had really just kind of had to come to terms with life as a 20-something-year-old. I am in my last, like I said, 5 months of my 20s, and kind of being intentional about what I want, not only the rest of my 2019, the rest of this year to look like, but also the last year of my 20s to look like, and then how I want my 30s to kind of look like. So during the first 6 months of this year of 2019, I had to sit in my stuff, and I had to own up to my mess and really just grow up, you know. I had lived under the umbrella of being like a 20-something-year-old for the last 9 years, you know, just kind of being young and dumb. But these last 6 months have really kind of catapulted me into wanting to be more intentional about how I spend the last year of my 20s, as well as the beginning of my 30s. So a little bit of backstory. I had gotten out of a long relationship, like a long relationship or whatever. And during that time that I was in that relationship, I was in graduate school, and there was just a lot of life happening during the time of my graduate school experience, plus the relationship, which ended up being about a 3-year time frame, right? And so grad school was very traumatic for me. The relationship was not ideal at times for me. The financial strain of paying my way through graduate school was definitely traumatic. And I kind of carried a lot of that with me throughout the relationship, throughout my graduate school experience, and then after the relationship was over and after I had graduated. And so going from graduating into the workforce, I kind of was able to sweep some of that stuff under the rug because I was working, I was making money. But now that I had that time off, that summer off, I was kind of hit head on with some stuff. So this year, the first 6 months of this year, I have, and I don't even know if I'm talking in circles. I don't even know where this is going, y'all. But basically, I've had to come to terms with a lot of stuff about myself. I had to recognize and listen and learn a lot of stuff about myself, as well as things that people had said about me. And, you know, when I started to hear patterns or similarities that people had mentioned about me, my personality, characteristics about me, I really had to just come to terms with them and be like, yep, obviously, if more than one person has said this, there has to be some truth in it to some extent. But also just figuring out what I wanted, you know, just in life, in relationships, in life for myself. I have been on a intentionality and manifestation and prayer and faith kick. God has revealed a lot to me within these last 6 months about myself, and as well as as well as things about my future and kind of like the path that I need to be on. And one of the hardest things for me was to give up my sense of control and allow those things to happen naturally. So one thing, I got my hair done yesterday, and one thing that I really just want to encourage y'all, because I am a 20-something-year-old navigating this thing called life one day at a time. There's no book, there's no instructional manual on how to do this, but in my last 6-month journey, I really just want to share some of the gems that I've learned, or some of the things that I've learned along the way. So I got my hair done yesterday, and I was talking to the girl who does my hair. Shout out to you, Ashley. Hey, girl. And a revelation hit me out of nowhere, right? And it was the fact that I'm a late bloomer. And I didn't really recognize that this pattern had been happening over the span of my life. And the thing about me is I look for patterns, right? I look for patterns, I look for consistencies and inconsistencies within myself and with those around me. And I had, like, out of nowhere just come to the realization that I am a late bloomer. And I have now accepted that that is the course that my life has taken. So I don't know if y'all are on social media. There's like this meme or this post that's like, Oprah got fired from her job at like 23, and such didn't write their first successful screenplay until they were 47, and X, Y, and Z didn't start acting until they were 94 or whatever. But basically just telling you that, like, there's no specific timeline or time frame that your blessing is supposed to happen, right? And so I had to recognize that that is my life story. I am a late bloomer. Things for me in life have happened at, I don't even want to say at a slower rate, because they've been at the most perfect pace for me, but they've been happening later on in life for me compared to those around me or what society would think. So yes, I'm 29. I got my first apartment on my own, paying my own rent at 27. Okay, I had been living with my parents up until that point. I had went and gone to school, undergrad or whatever. And then once I graduated from undergrad, I moved back in with my parents. We moved to a whole different state. I moved in with them and stayed with them throughout my entire graduate school experience, probably for about, I think I stayed with them. How long did I live with my parents? 5 years, right? I have no kids. I'm not married. I just bought my first car, my very first car at 29. Well, bought my own first car. I drove the first car that I've ever had for 14 years. I just bought my first car on my own a few months ago, right? At 29. Let me see, not married, just bought the first car, just got my first spot at 27. I went to grad school. I was one of the older ones that were in grad school out of my cohort. I had waited 2 years post bachelor's before I went back to school. And I just got into my career last year. So all of that to say that I have been a late bloomer compared to either those around me or compared to what society would think. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, if I look back, y'all, at like if I had tried to rush this process, I would be miserable. Like, and there were times, like, I'm not gonna lie, there were times where I was like, God, when is it gonna be my turn? God, when is it going to be my season? And y'all, I am so glad that God has made me wait for the things that He has blessed me with, because had I gotten them when I thought I wanted them or when I thought I was ready for them, I would have never taken care of them, and I would not be in the place that I am today. So yes, I was 27, living at home with my parents. Multiple people have been asking me, when are you going to move out? But the season wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? And in that season, with me living with my parents, I was able to pay my way through graduate school. I graduated with zero debt, none, not nan ounce of debt, okay? The little bit of student loan debt that I did have was from undergrad. It was like a couple $1,000 from me being sassy and my dad making me pay my one semester on my own, because my parents did pay my way through undergrad, but I was able to pay that off. I was able to save money so that when this apartment that I'm in now did come along, I had no issues getting it. My credit was phenomenal because I had paid off all of my debt. And this isn't me bragging, this is me being honest. I had the money to put down the down payments, get my electric turned on, get my water turned on. All of the things, like you had to have a month and a half or 2 months worth of rent. All of the fees that come with the apartment, I was able to pay those out flat out, no stress, nothing. With the car, I was driving a rink-a-dink hunk of junk, right? But the car was paid for. It got me to and from where I needed to go. I didn't have any loans out, and it worked, And now that I have my new car, like, I'm able to pay for my car. I'm able to pay my car note or whatever. And it's not me stressing, worrying, trying to figure out when I'm going to get the money for the payment. Like, because God had blessed me with the job that I have now. My job that I have now, y'all, my whole life, I'm telling you, my whole life is a story of having to wait and being in the right season and being in position so that when God did bless me, I was able to be obedient and a good steward of that blessing. But the job that I had now, as soon as I graduated college, I had said, I'm going to work. Well, not as soon as, while I was in grad school, I was like, I'm going to work at my internship. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work for this company. And then God was like, okay, you're cute. Keep telling me what you're going to do. An issue happened and had unfolded at that particular internship that was pretty major, that made me never want to step foot in that internship again, which is fine. Like, it had to happen because I was going to be a blocking to my blessing by thinking that that's where I needed to be. So after that incident happened, I was like, okay, I want nothing to do with them. Like, once I complete my internship hours, I'm done, right? So after I graduated, well, actually, right before I graduated, my professor had asked me, what did I want to do? And I was like, I want to work in this particular field doing X, Y, and Z. And I was like, I don't want to work with kids. I don't ever want to work with kids. And she was like, you do realize that now that you've said that, you're going to work with children, right? And I was like, you're funny. So I graduated, and it's not that I couldn't get a job. I had to work part-time at one of our aftercare facilities, I guess if you want to call it that. My school district has an aftercare program. It's a program. I had to work making $10 an hour. I was the highest educated person working there, and I was older than my supervisor. But I had to work there to be humbled and to be in the position so that when my blessing came, I was ready for it. So I worked that job for 2 months after I had graduated with my master's. And I was working alongside people who were still in undergrad. I was working alongside people who were in high school. Like I said, I was older than my supervisor, and I'm like making $10 an hour, which is fine. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you my story. But every time I would go to try to apply for a job, I would get sick. Like, I would literally physically feel ill. I wouldn't have peace in my spirit. And I was like, I can't just continue working this job like this, but I need to look for something else. But every time I go to look for a job, I don't have peace. And so I prayed about it, and God was like, Jesus and I have a very interesting relationship. God was like, girl, you got to chill, and you got to trust me, because everything that you think you want is not what you need, and that's not what I have planned for you. And so I was like, all right, God, I'm going to relinquish control. I'm going to hand over the reins. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to allow you to do your thing. I went to church. I had prayed about it. I went to church. I had put a prayer request on the altar, and I had specifically prayed, God, I pray for a job in a school in my field that pays well and that will bring me joy and that allows me to be walking in your purpose, right? Being a blessing to other people. There was no such jobs that were available at that time that I knew of. The next day, y'all, if I'm lying, I'm flying. The next day, I looked on my school district, my local school district's website. There was a job that was posted for a mental health clinician doing mental health work, because I'm a therapist, in the school district. Great pay, X, Y, and Z. The next day, I went to go apply for the job. That was a Monday. As soon as I went to go apply, Jesus was like, you gotta wait till tomorrow. Apply tomorrow. I had known because I had heard his voice. I knew what he felt like. I was like, let me wait. The next day I waited, I applied. By the end of the week, I had my first interview. By the end of the second week, I had my second interview. Before the end of the second week, I had the job already offered to me. So I had to wait though. I had to sit in my season of waiting. I had to sow all types of things. And the things that I sowed was patience, faith, humility, intention. I had to sow away my pride, which is humility. I was sowing, humility and all of the other things, right? In order to reap or harvest the things that God has given me. So I want to tell you and encourage you that, yes, as a 20-something-year-old, we have no idea how to navigate this thing called life, right? Like there's no instruction manual. I don't know about you. My parents are older. They're baby boomers. And so life for them in their 20s, they were already married, had been married for about 8-ish years or so. I think my mom was probably, if not already pregnant with me, about to be pregnant with me very shortly. They already had a house, working full-time jobs, and all the things. That's not our reality. It is some of our realities right now. It might be, but our parents' reality or our grandparents' reality might not be our reality just because of the way society and culture has shifted, So my job here is to encourage you to just be content in your season and to wait it out in your season, right? You might be in your harvest season, or not harvest, your sowing season, where you're sowing, you're doing the work on the back end. You don't necessarily see the fruits of your labor right now. It feels like you're working, but you're not producing any results. But I heard some really good advice from someone that I want to share with you guys because I think it holds true and I think it holds really good value. So I was listening to a sermon and someone said that if you need a lesson on patience or on sowing, because we talk about reaping and sowing, to get a plant, get some seeds, get some, not grass, soil, get a pot and plant it, right? And water it and you cultivate it. And you'll see that just because you plant the seed, you throw some soil on top and you slap some water on top of that, you're not going to blink your eye and then have like a whole lemon tree just like sprout up out of nowhere because you did 3 little steps, right? You have to wait, you have to nourish, and you have to nurture that particular seed, making sure that you're not only watering it, but that the soil's right, and that you allow it time to produce whatever it is that you're trying to get produced, whether it's a lemon tree, some cabbage, a carrot, whatever it is, a flower, whatever it is, right? During that time, just because you don't see the things happening below the soil does not mean that those things aren't happening, right? So a little, and I know nothing about planting. My dad is like the master gardener who does all the things. So if you are a good greenery person, forgive me, I'm just going to speak in layman's terms. Below the surface, you're going to see little sprouts of maybe a root here or there, or maybe a little like thing sprouting off underneath the surface of the dirt that you can't necessarily see. But the more time you give it, the stronger those roots get, the more likely there are to actually hold and take place. And then when they're firmly planted, that particular seed of whatever it is that you're planting will start to show, right? And it'll still be moving underneath the surface and you can't see it until it's time for it to break the surface of the dirt or the soil. And that's when you start to see a glimpse of the product or the fruits of your labor. You know what I mean? But even then, you still have to take care of it, protect it, still nourish and water it. Just because you see a little tiny like thing this big break from the surface doesn't mean that you're able to dig it up and eat a carrot. You still have to allow that time to naturally occur for that carrot to grow, mature or whatever, by watering it, giving it the right sunlight, all the things, right? And for me, when I start to see the soil break a little bit, that's when I kick into overdrive. I'm like, yeah, now that I see a product of my labor, like I'm able to really see that like this is the direction that I'm going in, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing or whatever. But I had to get to that point where before the soil is broken, I still have to have faith and understand that there's things working below the surface that I might not know anything about. And so God is working in your life, y'all. You might not be able to see it, but He is making and moving and doing and opening doors and closing doors for you that need to be closed. He's cracking open doors for you that He will eventually burst wide open so that you can walk and run through them. But those closed doors that are closed, let them be closed, y'all. I was devastated when my issue happened at my internship because I thought that that's where I was supposed to be after I graduated. But looking back, I am so happy that I am not working at my internship, because there are people who I do know that work there who are either miserable, who have left, who have seen like people's jobs just be ripped away from them with no prior knowledge. And there's no way that I would have been able to maintain this apartment, get a new car, pay off my debt working there, because it's an unstable situation. It's an unstable job situation. But in that moment, I was so just hurt that God would allow that to happen to me. But now that I see being on the other end and working at my job, the blessing, that rejection was God's protection. You know what I'm saying? So I've had to really, over these last 6 months, recognize and accept and be grateful for God's protection over some of the things or people that have rejected me. Because had He allowed those things or people into my life, y'all, I would be a basket case right now. I would probably be bald, and I already got a few gray hairs, but I'd probably have like a whole head full of gray hairs. So I'm just here to encourage y'all. You know, we do have a very small amount of control over our lives, and that control is how we treat people, how we respond to situations. If we choose to allow God to work in our lives, if we choose to hear God's voice, if we choose to be disciplined, to be intentional, to practice self-control, those are things that we have control over, right? I encourage you over the next 6 months, from June to December, to practice those things that we do have control over, so that your life can either continue to be more abundant, or you can continue to live in abundance, or you can kind of change the trajectory of your life if you don't like the way that life is going right now for you. Obviously, we have no control over like what might happen tomorrow, but we can have control over if we choose to allow God to move in our lives, and if we choose to allow ourselves to be obedient to what God is telling us. You know, if you have some undealt with things that you need to work through them. As uncomfortable, y'all, it was painful for me to work through my mess. But I had to do it. And I had to go through the mess in order to work through the mess, in order to be where I am today. And in the midst of it, and I mean, I was in the throes, like I was depressed. I was so anxious. I was having panic attacks. I would isolate myself. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't go anywhere. You know, I don't want to say I played the woe is me card, because I really was in the midst of it. But I had allowed myself for a long time to be ruled by my circumstance and my situation before I decided to take an active stance and process and move through it. And during that time, that transitional time, it was tough. Like the growing pains were so real, and they were so uncomfortable, and it was so unfamiliar and foreign. But I am so glad that I did it, and that I was able, and not only that I did it, but God walked with me through that. And I had people in my life that walked with me through that. I appreciate, shout out to all of y'all. Y'all know who you are. The people that I talked to, text, called, FaceTime, like just who worked with me through my BS, because it was some trash. Like I went through some trash. But I thank God for the people that He placed in my life during that time, because they really did help me. You know, they really like rallied around me. They answered the phone. They talked with me. I had some tough conversations. But it was necessary. So I encourage you, all of this to say, once again, I'm going on a rant, that for the next 6 months, if you are doing the work, I encourage you to continue doing your work. If you haven't started doing your work, whatever that is, whatever that means for you, I would encourage you to start it. There is beauty and peace and freedom on the other side of working through your stuff. There's beauty and peace and freedom in relinquishing control and giving it to God if you are religious or spiritual. And there's beauty and peace and freedom in learning and knowing yourself and what you want for life. Because once you have a general idea or a template or a roadmap with what you want, you can be more intentional in how you manifest, how you speak life into your life and the things that you want. And I promise you, there is power in the tongue. There is power in claiming healing, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, whatever. There's power in claiming that, make sure you give thanks. And once God starts moving in your life and you see the other side, to make sure that you share your experience with other people. Like, I always tell people, I don't mind going through mess if my mess is to help somebody else. If I'm supposed to learn something from this and share it with someone else to help them avoid what I went through, I don't mind it. But I hope the rest of your 2019 is a beautiful journey. I hope that it's a beautiful year. I don't know y'all's story. You might be dealing with stuff that's bigger than just, personal healing. Maybe you've had a loss. Maybe you've had a trauma. I don't know. I would encourage you to seek counseling if therapy or counseling is something that would help benefit you or help you through this process. There is no shame, y'all, in going to therapy. I probably before the end of this week, I'm going to look at getting a therapist myself, and I am a therapist because I just need maintenance. You wouldn't drive a luxury car and never take it to go get its oil changed or go get, looked at or just have maintenance. And I'm not a luxury car, but I'm a whole human. And I need maintenance, whether it's going to the doctor for physical maintenance or going to a therapist for emotional or mental maintenance. I am going to maintain this body of mine, this brain of mine, this life of mine to the fullest. So you're not alone, friends. Whether you are a 20-something-year-old, a millennial, you're older or younger than me, there's nothing new over the sun. Nothing new under the sun, y'all. Somebody somewhere has gone through the same thing as you, and you're not alone. And there's peace for me. There's peace in knowing that there's somebody else that has experienced or has felt the way that I feel or, experienced things that I've experienced. So I encourage you to reach out. Don't isolate. If you do need to go to therapy, go see a therapist. We are paid to listen and help and guide. I hope that your 2019 continues to be beautiful. If it is already or has been beautiful, I hope that it remains and maintains its beauty. If it hasn't been or has been less than ideal, I do pray that it takes a turn for the better, but that you take an active stance in helping it take a turn for the better. So if you enjoyed, I'm not here to get content, like create content for y'all to like view it so that I get views. But if you do enjoy just these transparency videos, because this is a little weird. You know what? I say that. 6 months ago, this would have been weird sitting in front of the camera, having this conversation, but I'm comfortable enough in my journey now that I don't mind being transparent with y'all. And that's saying something because, I do not like being vulnerable or transparent. But these last 6 months have encouraged me and kind of forced me to be. And so now this is a space that I feel more comfortable in. There's still areas of discomfort when it comes to vulnerability and transparency, but it's definitely a lot easier than it used to be for me. So anyway, if you enjoy just these transparent posts, life updates, If there's any topics y'all want to talk about, yes, I'm a therapist. No, I will not counsel you. But we can have real life, and no offense, like, but ethically, legally, I can't counsel you. But we can have real life discussions. If that's something that y'all would be interested in, just let me know. But I guess you might have made it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed hearing about my little journey, or you want to share about your journey, just let me know. You can comment. You don't have to click or hit the like or subscribe button. I just wanted to talk to y'all and just check in. So until the next video, until the next one, I will see y'all later. Bye.